All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We are going to be talking about optimizing benefits for a diverse workforce and workplace. And who better to talk to than Stacey Marx? As y'all know, she is the VP, Senior Vice President for Total Rewards and HR Technology, AT&T. And, you know, you are in such a unique position with bringing on that transition that you were talking to me about. First off, talk about how long that you've been at AT&T and kind of some of the important things that you do for the company.
Yeah, well, thank you. So first, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you for, from day one, for having us on this super important topic of well-being. I think it's top of mind for everybody, so I'm super excited to dive right in. I've been at AT&T, I don't know how this has happened because I'm only 20, but I've been at AT&T over 20 years, and I've done everything from chief bottle washer to president of one of our largest segments, and now I'm in HR, and the cross chasm there is people. I'm all about the people. I grew up in a really small town of 2,000 people, and if anybody, who's from small towns here, anybody? You know that if you know someone, you know the whole town, right? And I think that has stuck with me. And it's a skill set that's helped me navigate through my career and is super important now leading HR.
And so diving in, with an ongoing workforce transformation and rising employee expectations, how have you aligned your company's benefit strategy to be more attuned to the needs of the workforce?
That's a great question. And gosh, I'm sure everybody in this room can have this pivotal moment called the pandemic. So you guys remember the pandemic hit pretty quick. It's not as if we did not talk about wellness pre-pandemic, but what happened is a couple things. We were isolated, mental health then began to suffer, and what did we stop doing? People stopped going to the doctor. They stopped their preventative measures, and all of that really put a bright light on wellness. And so at AT&T, while we were always focused on wellness and well-being, this chasm really drew us even more importantly. And so we really spent quite a bit of time on the pillars of well-being, and I'm sure this is not news to you. Many of you live this every day. So whether that be financial, social, of course, physical, etc. And that then was the platform that we really began to put the employee first in how we think about our benefits.
And are you able to talk about some of those programs that you kind of instituted with the Total Wellbeing?
Oh, absolutely. So we're super excited about many of our programs, and we have some. So let's just talk about first. It is so important to take care of yourself and your family so that you can bring your best self to work. And so one of our more nuanced items, we have launched over 20 platforms to be exact. One of our more nuanced ones is paid time off for caregiver leave. So whether you are like me in the sandwich generation, so I have children and aging parents, this gives me time that is not vacation time, but much needed time to stop and do what I need to do to take care of those. Another example that we have is a company called Maven. And this is great for those of you in the stage of life that you're in that might include family planning. So whether you have 5 kids, no kids, etc., this will help you go through the process. And the beautiful thing about Maven is it helps young families from fertility education through each of the trimesters of pregnancy, and at the end, even after you return to work, it helps you have the support of, gosh, what they might need at that time. So it's soup to nuts. We're here to meet our employees, and I think somebody on the panel before me said that, meet our employees where they are on their life's journey.
And talking about these newly introductory programs, can you talk about a new mental health program that y'all have kind of instituted?
Yeah, so we have a new platform called Lyra. Is anybody familiar with Lyra? All right, a few of you. So we love this platform, and it really came out of what we talked about in COVID, which is mental health is at the forefront, and we also want to destigmatize mental health. And so when I think about mental health, and each one of you actually has a role to play in this destigmatization of mental health. How can you do that? It's a simple start. Talk about it. Make it normal. So I'm going to go on a commercial here for mental health. Make it the normal thing. It doesn't take a huge emergency, maybe it's a death or something, to require mental health. Actually, mental health is in the everyday thing. So I like to talk to my daughter about mental health in the following way. I'll say to her, you have a physical coach. You go to training, right? You have a band instructor. You have your medical doctor. Mental health is just another tool in that tool belt that you need to use. And I like to think about it as a mental coach. And when you destigmatize it like that, then all of a sudden people say, yeah, you know, I'm feeling a little down. I can't put my finger on why. Hey, you have this tool. Lyra is so easy to use. You normally can find a place or some help within 2 hours. It's virtual. You can find help that is like you, whatever that means. Maybe it's your phase of life, your ethnic background, etc. And so we just love it because it's super accessible and easy to care. I'll tell you, I use it myself. One of the things, again, for those of you with teenage kids, you know I'm a problem solver by nature. So you bring me a problem. Teenage girls, they have lots of problems. We all know that, right? And so they bring you a problem, I want to fix it. And sometimes my daughter just wants to vent. And so what I have learned is the following. Riley, would you like me to help, hug, or hear you today? And then all of a sudden, that's a life skill that we can learn through platforms like this. And our employees have been using it. It's been a great resource.
And I love the idea of the total well-being perspective when it comes to benefits. How do you make sure that employees know that they have access to all of these tools?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question, because access, and I would say at the right time. And so we talk about this life journey. One of the cool things about AT&T is we have 5 generations working at AT&T. So whether it's baby boomer, Generation Z, sandwich generation like myself. And so it's important to have simple, non-HR speak, in other words, plain speak. How many of us have so many acronyms that we talk about? Enough, right? Piles and piles of acronyms. So we have one single entry point, a portal that you can go into and find everything that you need. We do our very best, having said that, it can always get better, to speak in plain English so that people can really find what they're looking for. And my favorite thing that we've done recently is on the back of your insurance card, we have an 800 number. You can call that 800 number, and we call it your own personal health care concierge. And so what that does for you is, maybe you have a child who's playing soccer and gosh, they got hurt and they're in 2 states away. You call this 800 number, they will help you find care that's close to you. Maybe you got a scary diagnosis and you're just not sure, or you want to talk to somebody about what is the right next step, or you want to find that specialist in your area, or you prefer a hospital system. This team will help you. And so that's like a real live example of how we put the employee in the center of all of our wellness benefits and really design around them.
And Stacey, how do you recommend other companies approach total well-being?
Yeah, that's really good. So first, let's take a moment to say, gosh, every company is different. We heard the prior panel had one of the largest employers with union. We also have a union workforce, and I told you we have 5 generations. So what works for us might not work in your situation, but what I would tell you is we found 2 cornerstones that you should think about when you're thinking about well-being. So the first one is putting that employee first and really soliciting feedback, but it's not just getting the feedback, it's actually listening to the feedback. And so, gosh, if they tell you that they want something that you might think is not that great, if the overwhelming majority of your people are struggling with that need, then guess what? The company is struggling with that need. So that's, of course, the first thing. And then the second thing is gathering data. I come from a finance background. We love data, especially in HR. And so look at the data, whether that be focus groups, employee surveys, et cetera. Those are the things that are the two cornerstones.
And zeroing in kind of back on the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that because I think it's so important, especially, when you transitioned into your position, it was kind of after the pandemic. So I feel like you really saw employees go through that. How is AT&T specifically working to normalize mental health care?
Yeah, so first of all, again, I would say to normalize it, it starts with us in this room. So if we don't think it's normal and we're in HR, then it doesn't penetrate the organization. Beyond that, though, is getting our leaders to talk about it, whether that be the everyday talk or whether it's in big town halls or employee gatherings. So that's number one. Then number two is having the tools that are easily accessible and giving the people the access, but also the time to take. And so for us, back on the pandemic trend, virtual has been really, really great for our employees because they don't need a lot of time. It gives people who are maybe in rural communities or maybe don't have great access to it where they live, it gives them access to it, and it opens up a whole new world. So those are two of the main items that we do to infiltrate it. But I can't understress enough, starting in this room with you, with your leaders, doing everything you can to normalize it. And so for me, that's talking about it like a mental coach. That just helps people with ease. And then that education on, it doesn't have to be some big event. It can often, what gives us anxiety, think about you in your daily life. What gives you anxiety? Of course, the big event. But also there's something every day, whatever it is, that's giving you that. And you can find help, tools in your toolkit.
And I'm jumping around a little bit, but I love the idea of the caretaker time off. And I want you to kind of go back and walk me through how it was implemented and how do employees feel comfortable, asking for that time off? Was that a challenge to kind of transition into?
Yeah, so first, a challenge, no, I wouldn't say it was a challenge. I would say, so caregiver leave, our employees have up to 3 weeks that they can take for caregiver leave. And I would say that they don't have to necessarily ask for it. It's a benefit, just like vacation. Now, oftentimes, caregiver leave is in an emergency situation. Somebody had something happen and you need to go help. I will tell you the employees love it because they don't have to use their vacation. So vacation is sacred time for you to rest and relax and recover so that you can bring your best self to life. Caregiver leave is truly just that, taking care of your loved ones to help them get better, because at AT&T we recognize the employee is not whole unless their whole family is whole. So the employees have loved it, and they code it just like you would code vacation.
And do you have a personal story that you can share from some of the employees that may have utilized that before and how it's really impacted them?
Yeah, so, like I said, I have aging parents, and for me, my father recently needed to have open heart surgery, but he was in Minnesota. And it wasn't a planned thing. It was, hey, dad's having open heart surgery tomorrow and mom's scared. Oh my gosh. So who can get, there's me. You guys probably all experienced this in your family, sister and brother, who's going to get there, who can get there fastest, what's going on. So that's a perfect example of caregiver leave. I've also had some coworkers whose child has gotten some sickness, some as minor as, super bad allergies and we need to figure it out and there's only these many appointments for the allergist and things like that. So that's what I mean about it. It can cross the chasm between the everyday and the more emergency situation. But it's just nice to know you have it.
Absolutely. And I want to go back to the 4 pillars that you were talking about of total well-being. How do you make sure that this is integrated in the fabric of the company's culture?
Yeah, so the 4 pillars, I just want to make sure that we all have them: emotional, social, physical, and financial. And for us, if you think about, we put the employee in the center and those pillars kind of surround them. And at AT&T, how we think about that is everything, if you're at our AT&T Dallas location, which is just down the street, it's the physical things that you can do on the campus, for example. So at our campus, there's a doctor, a psychologist, physical therapy, a pharmacy, Fidelity is there. So that's one way we exhibit that we are kind of putting our money where our mouth is and really, truly valuing that. So the ease for our employees. I myself go get all my vaccines downstairs. It's an app. You schedule it. It takes 10 minutes. It's awesome. The physical therapist, we've actually had to hire more. The demand is so big and it's so convenient. So that's in the everyday thread of who we are, and it exhibits the fact that we think it's important. Now on the social, one thing you might be interested in is we actually give employees a day off to volunteer. And we encourage them to volunteer with their teams because they feel so, it's an amazing thing. I do it with my team, it's my favorite thing. Everybody feels great, it's fun, and we don't have to take vacation or do it after work. It's a volunteer day off.
Absolutely, and in your position, it's so important to be involved in the community too, and that's a perfect way to support that. Can you talk a little bit more about how employees are finding what they need, and when if companies are rolling out new programs, what's the best way to introduce it to employees? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but if you can kind of just go back over that.
Yeah, so the best way to roll out programs, and I'm sure everybody in this room has been rolling out programs, right? So the best way, again, is simple, clear, but most importantly, if you have somebody in the physical location that they are who can be an expert or a champion, that's super helpful. When I first came to benefits, so prior to being in HR, I led a sales organization. And when I came to HR, I said, we need to get out in the field so that people can touch and feel and ask their questions, as opposed to sending emails and websites. Those are all great, but people don't sometimes know where to start. So having that human touch and making it easy to talk about has been really a game changer for both the employees and frankly the HR team to say, gosh, there is value in having that. Now, we're very fortunate that we have this Dallas campus. I'll give you one story on one of the items that we rolled out. We, again, putting the employee in the center, my team said, Stacey, I think we should bring in a dentist to the concourse of our building. I have to be honest and tell you, I thought, who in the world is going to go to a pop-up dentist in the basement of our building to get a filling or their teeth cleaned? I just thought, this is a great idea, but do we think people will do it? Let me tell you, we're bringing it back a few times because there was such demand. Really what that taught us is easy. When you roll things out, people want easy access. And that's the best example I can come up. You knocked me over with a feather when people came to the building for their dentist.
Absolutely.
That they didn't know, by the way. Just random walk in, get your teeth cleaned, get a fill. That's still to this day, I'm amazed.
Yeah, absolutely. And curious to know how you go about collecting feedback, other than when you see that something's successful like that with the dentist example, with other circumstances, how do you go about knowing whether something worked or isn't working?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Just like many of you, we do employee surveys. So that is our first line of defense. Then also we do focus groups that say, hey, we noticed that this particular cohort of employees are using these benefits. And so we'll say, what's valuable to you about that benefit? We also, when we do our annual enrollment, which I'm sure every company does, we use that opportunity to have robust Q&A sessions. And these are the items that I'm talking about where we get the HR team in the field with the employees to really get that feedback. And then we also solicit with leaders throughout the business time to go and talk to their teams about wellness. And we talk about culture and well-being. That's one of the things that you can easily begin, but it's not a switch. You don't switch it on and switch it off. It takes a little bit of time. Getting leaders comfortable. So first, you have to get the leader educated. Why? Because the leader goes, oh, I don't want to get a question I don't know how to answer because I'll look kind of silly. So first taking the time to educate them and then give them the comfort to say, I got you. I'll be there with you. There's questions, just I got it. And those are some items on how you can quickly and effectively roll out well-being.
And after kind of implementing this total well-being mindset in the company's culture, have you seen it change employees at all?
Yeah, so in our Dallas building, that people are crazy for everything that we've offered there, so much so that now we're copying that and putting it in Atlanta. And through that, word has begun to spread. And more than anything, the platforms, whether that be Lyra that we talked about, which is mental health, or Maven, which is one of our most popular platforms, as families go through becoming a family, the word of mouth just begins. And what is at the center of it is just simply ease of use. And that really seems to make a difference.
And we have just about a minute and a half left. And for companies out there who are looking to maybe implement and optimize benefits for a diverse workforce and implement a strategy maybe like the total well-being, what's one piece of advice you can leave us?
The one piece of advice I would leave you is talk straight, simple talk, know your employee base, and do what matters to them. Not what matters to you, but what matters to them. And those two, and make it accessible. Those are the top three things. You'll be a success.
Thank you so much, Stacey.
Thank you.